Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another week in the Corporate Esports Association Overwatch Tournament. I'm Big Hungry Phil, and joining me today is, of course, as always, we can't get over him as much as we've tried. It's Man of Class. Man of Class, welcome to the broadcast, and what have we got coming up first?
First of all, we've got a wonderful match between the GMs and the Killer T Cells, both, obviously representing their wonderful companies that they play for, but more importantly, representing the charities that they play for in order to make the world a better place. And that's a wonderful thing, Phil, because the world will always get a better place after the CEA is ended because charities are getting money. And, it might be a different charity that wins or gets more money
Yeah.
every single time, but at least it's going to a good cause.
Yeah, the bittersweet contradiction of the world getting worse because CEA has ended and getting better because money
Yeah.
has gone towards some charities. It would be nice if it kept going, but I'll take the money to charity. That seems perfectly adequate. So the teams we've got coming up first, the GMs are General Motors. Now, this is a new team to CEA. We've not seen them in
Yep.
any of the previous seasons. Whereas Killer T Cells, you and I have actually covered in the previous season, and they're a little bit
Yep,
interesting
correct.
because it's more than one company here.
Yeah, so Killer T Cells is a combination of two, so Adaptive Biotech and Slalom.
Hmm.
They couldn't find enough players in their own companies, and they just kept playing together. It's one of those beautiful stories of cooperation in that way. Yeah, I mean, you'll have to see it honestly. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
obviously, you have the idea of you play for your company as a company, but you can also play with others. That's also a place where gamers meet,
Mhm.
not just because they work at the same company, but even in different companies, they still come together somehow.
That's right. And I actually don't know what happened with it this season, but there was supposedly let's call it like a free radicals, a free agents team
Hmm.
for if you were in a company and wanted to play but didn't have enough other people.
Yeah,
So I don't know what happened with that one. Maybe we'll see them later on in the season. I'm sure a producer or somebody will let me know over the course of the broadcast today. But let's have a
for
little bit of a
sure.
chat about what we can expect from these two teams. And as always, we tend to just get like the team sheets. They tell us what their favorite heroes are, what their rough range of. And I think it's fair to say that both of these teams are going to be towards the lower end of the SR range for the teams in the tournament, but within that range, fairly well matched today.
Yeah, I would definitely expect this one to be a fun one to watch as we're going through the first map, which is going to be Lijiang Tower.
Hmm.
Where we'll see what their real playstyle is like because we've seen a variety of things. Everything can really work. I'd say when we start a control center, we're probably going to be nice and brawly, a lot of Reinhardt Zarya esque gameplay. But there's so much variety you can still do in terms of supports and DPS. And
Hmm.
while they don't really have that on their team sheets that you feel like, oh yeah, they're gonna only main this or one trick this hero. There's a lot of flexibility and hopefully in both, and maybe they'll go into the whole counter comp situation.
Just before we came live into this, I can't help but notice that we did have SWAT Cat hovering very briefly over the Bastion pick, which ordinarily I would say yes, they're just trying to bait us, but we actually did see quite a lot of Bastion last week, but not what is locked in anymore. I thought we might be revisiting another 3-game series of nothing but Bastion the entire time.
I think at some point it just became a gentleman's agreement saying, no, no,
Yeah,
no, we're not doing Bastion anymore.
no,
That
too
being
much.
said, though, I mean, if you're talking about Bastion being like a tournament pick or just a general pick, it could be a thing. Like we could just run into an entire season of a lot of Bastion, especially in
Yeah.
the top 8, because that's really where those games took place. But that being said, we're going into this with SWAT Cat on the Tracer, Gonzo on the Junkrat. Both Reinhardt Zaryas are out for the teams. There's going to be a flank maneuver from SWAT Cat, so a little bit less of a front forward approach for the entire team.
Go down to SWAT Cat to find an opening pick here in the back line. Two juicy looking supports there, waiting for a Tracer to come in and one clip them. In the meantime, though, big brawl on the point. Maywell out from Chasin already, and Rocket Max, the first to go down, trading out with the main tank, and Gonzo with a quick double one. Conk Mine, 2 kills. There's a third for Gonzo, and it's going to be Killer T-Snills here, starting off very strong with the first point.
Nice win on the early fight. Not completely unexpected. When you look at their support line, they had the Zenyatta and the Mercy out. Not a whole lot of healing, and when you go into that brawl and both teams are just refusing to really let up, the team with more sustain usually wins, and Lucio Moira just does more healing overall.
There's a nice ice wall. Even nicer connect there with the charge. Did see the... Oh, no. Shadow comes out early from Gamezoid, but right into Tofu's shield. And now Tofu has got a big advantage, particularly because Gamezoid is no longer in the fight. Killer T-Cells with the opening frag, but Gamezoid brought back in. Gonzo with another double. And, well, you know, good try here, General Motors, but it will be Killer T-Cells continuing to hold on to the point. Tofu even committed the Earth Shatter in that fight. And that's going to be Gamezoid sent back to spawn, even through the res. But the next time through, they will have Chassis Blizzard to play with.
It's a very high damage affair at the moment for Killer T-Cells. Because, well, they keep on throwing out a lot of damage from that Junkrat specifically. That shield of Gamezoid does not have a chance to really stay up. And as much as Psycho Reaper and Chasen will be able to help out with Shield Break, it is likely not going to be enough when you have that Junkrat on the other side together. And the Tracer even distracts you in the backline. That Tire is out early, though.
Right in the middle of them, but a Fire Strike from Gamezoid takes it out at the last second. Pow with the Graviton Surge, it's indeed. In comes SWAT Cat with the stick, gets 2. Blizzard's going to come out here from Chasen. The rest back in as SWAT Cat runs them over. There's a second from SWAT Cat. And at 82% and climbing now for Killer T-Cells, and little to no kills on the board for General Motors. It's looking like this might be a shutout on Control Center.
It's not looking like a great shot to come back into.
Oh, it's a pin!
93% and counting. Maybe he can get to the objective in time. Gamezoid's definitely trying, and I think he will touch. But can they get there? They have a few ultimates to work with as well, Phil. This, oh, the Graviton cannot even come out if you're shattered.
No, well, this might be the flip here. Beautiful gameplay by Gamezoid. Charges Tofu into the back, heads onto point, lands the shadow. Psycho Reaper comes in with the tactical visor, and that's going to be General Motors at the last possible second getting the flip.
Let this be a lesson to all players at home. It isn't over until you've got that point secured, until it says objective complete. So definitely don't start throwing away fights or playing too overzealous. If you play steadily, it's usually how you get that win in the end. So not just yet there, but Killer T-Cell's still in the lead.
Ooh, that's a nice grab. 4 in it. Charge connects with the bubble on Tofu. There's the shadow from Gamezoid. Sunline killed by that. Tofu down to the swing of the hammer. Stray starting to come through. SWAT Cat's able to find 1 here, but 1 is not going to be enough when you are 3 down in the fight already. So that's going to be the reset here for Killer T-Cells.
Bit of a shame that Sherlock Schmo loses all that charge on the Zarya, but then again, usually in these situations, especially against the Junkrat, you get that back in no time. Looking for a Pulse Bomb is going to be Chasen. Rocket Max with the Coalescence. There isn't... Well, there's a Pulse Bomb and almost a Riptire on the other side. This could be a hard fight for Killer T-Cells. We'll see if you do anything about that.
Both Tracers ready with a stick, and there's one. I believe Nicely was able to flip out of the way of that one. SWAT Cat finds Boca here, so it's the immediate 5v6. Gonzo tags up on the backline. Info finds Nice Meme. Here's Rocket Max with the Coalescence. These games are alive fight. The Pow's alive with high energy, looking to beam anybody they can down. Gamezoid falls low, but Rocket Max is able to find Pow before they can get that final bit of damage in to get the kill onto Gamezoid. They're not out of the woods just yet, but as the rest comes through and brings Sherlock Schmo back in, we are very close to last fight territory for both teams.
Another Riptire that got nothing from Gonzo as well. I mean, they're looking for this value. The Tracer is just outplaying them. Jason doing a great job. There's a sound barrier outside. Does still get 3, but the Shatter is good.
A shatter, the counter shatter, the Graviton Surge will lock Gentleman is in place. And at the last second in, they come with the damage, the Coalescence, the shatter, the swing of the hammer. And that is it. Killer T-Cells looking good. The chase down onto Chase in. Flip comes through, and I don't think there's much chance of a contest here. No! Sherlock Schmo is able to get back in on the Wrecking Ball, but it's 6v1. They put a small amount of time, but it's not been enough. And the pressure comes in, stops Gamezoid getting the tag on, and it was not the lockout it looked like it was going to be.
No, and I think we were both really at that 99 to 93% mark when they finally actually were able to touch. I think we both of us were like, yeah, I mean, they touched, but it's pretty much over, isn't it? And they just rolled in with that tac visor, took out half the team and more, flipped it back over, and now GM is in a place where it looks a little bit closer. That being said, not a guarantee for the future. They still lost the objective in the end. But don't let that happen to you again if you are Killer T-Cells, because that can just turn the other way. You cannot use some ultimates sometimes, and then all of a sudden it's a 1-1, and maybe a 2-1, and you just lost the map. So They have to be on the lookout. They still have to be careful, and they're not switching up anything in their composition other than Gonzo going over to the Soldier. On the other side, we'll see Jason and Psycho Reaper both go to different heroes. The Echo and the Reaper coming out. Psycho Reaper, of course, with the namesake. Don't know if that's the name that they chose it for that reason, but would make sense.
Yeah, I did wonder if that's why we're going to see that. It's a player I'd like to see the general playtime history of. Tofu playing very aggressively here. They're behind Rocket Man. It's a 2-for-1 trade. SWAT Cat will go down here. They'll be back in the fight nice and quick. Gonzo lasers down Sherlock Schmo. And this is just a repeat of round 1. It's Killer T-Cells coming out the gates hot and heavy.
I'm on fire.
That's what you're expecting of them. That's like how that worked in the first fight, like you said, on the last objective. And they look so confident here. Like, it really starts making you wonder how they lost 99% of that other point in the first place. But we'll see. Let's see what GM shows us, and shows us why and how they can do this.
I love this hold from Killer T-Cells, not playing passively on the point, playing aggressively with the Shadow, the Helix Rocket in over the top, takes out Rocket Max, and that's going to be another very quick, very clean, very decisive team fight from Killer T-Cells.
And to me, it's actually relatively interesting that they go for that style, for that aggressive style, because the Tracer would normally not really be fitting in that equation. But you can see SWAT Cat going around the side, is waiting in that side room right now with almost a pulse bomb, and is looking, where do I have to be active? Where can I flank? And now they can flank on this side of the choke.
Walls from Chasing have been very good so far, but they just weren't expecting Gonzo to have the Tactical Visor online already. There's nowhere to run, Brocat. And they honestly don't come much quicker and cleaner than this for team fights. These have just been like snap and done.
It almost feels like GM is trying to pull out some ultimates and then go in themselves with their full bank. And they're getting close to a few. Like, they have almost 3 ultimates online. But it's not a lot if you have, they're basically one fight territory, Phil.
I feel like the coalescence from Nice Me might have been a nice way to start off this fight for Killer T-Cells, but GameSword times it nicely with a shatter. And at pretty much the final minutes, we're going to see GM come back in. One last attempt at a bit of a shootout between Gonzo and Psycho Reaper, but the flip comes through.
You'll have to see it. A good Maywall, nice shatter into it. That's good frontline play. That's good brawl play as you're supposed to do it. And honestly, when you play against a team that has a Tracer and a Soldier, you should be able to make those plays a bit more because they shouldn't be that close together and the wall can separate more.
Oh, that is a big grab. SWAT Cat sticks it on the ground, finds one. Sherlock Schmo down. And again, the speed at which these team fights are decided is phenomenal. Killer T-Cells, if they can keep this up over the rest of the match, well, it's gonna be a quick one. Last fight territory now. General Motors with one last go in here. This Graviton Surge has to count for something.
I'm looking for an angle for sure. Sherlock Schmo is gonna actually go for the flank to try and get it off. The shatter from Tofu.
And that's it. Is anybody... Oh, we actually did get somebody onto the point. Sand Barrier's online from Sunline. She's going to keep her team alive through that. One last attempt here with the Death Blossom, the Tactical Visor, and a little bit of distance that goes up between them takes them out of the fight. And it's all over by the crying. Chasing the last to go down, almost with the flip there, but overtime done. And it's a 2-0 on Lijiang Tower. Killer T-Cells putting 1 point on the board.
And like you said, I think the most surprising thing is how fast these fights have been going, and kind of on both sides. I think we've had maybe 2 more extended fights on this entire point so far, on the first point and the second point combined on Lijiang Tower. And I'm not sure if that's going to change throughout the series, because chokes exist throughout Overwatch, points to hold and attack from, points to get through. And there's a lot of these positions where fights take place, like these sort of predetermined fight locations on every single map, no matter what kind of objective there is. And we could just be in for a short series that way. It's very realistic.
And I think I started to focus a little bit there on SWAT Cat and SWAT Cat's performance on the Tracer. And one of the things that we didn't get to discuss prior to going into the game was what the SR range of these teams are. Because
Sure.
one of the ways that sort of, it doesn't dictate how the fight goes, but it gives you an indication of if there's something weird going on with the team, maybe this is part of it, is there a big gap between the highest SR player and the lowest SR player? And for Killer T-Cells, SWAT Cat is up at that 3K border compared to players like, Papao and Lightbulb who are down at 2K. So we've got a 1K gap there. for GM,
Sure.
I think we're maybe a little bit more all over the place. I never know quite how much of a grain of salt to take this with, but Bocat, support player for GMs, currently apparently around the 500 SR marker. And we have seen
Yeah.
some of these players in last season who put up a better performance than they really should for a 500 SR player. But, diamond player, low bronze player is a big step between these teams.
Big diff. It's a big difference. Yeah, I mean, you see the players probably in your own games as well, like type it after games. X diff. So they talk about a specific role or specific hero. Like, oh, it was just ours was just better, so that's why we won. And
Diff.
sometimes that's a thing. But of course, we're talking here about the difference between a main support and a DPS player. Like that's a very big difference in how they impact, how much impact they can have, how the heroes play out, all of that. So there's a lot of factors to take into account there. That being said, that difference is big, and especially if you take in the communication chain as well as the way they slot into a team. Often you can expect a little bit more from a higher SR player, but we've seen it in the past. It sometimes just doesn't matter. Of course, Killer T cells are up one map right now,
Yeah.
and we are getting to get into the next map. Well, in the near future, naturally. And as a reminder, it's a first of 3 series. So if we get 3 map wins for any of the teams, then we're done,
Yep,
and we can
straight through.
go into the next one. But we might need more. We might need that
Right.
5th or 6th map even. So we'll see where they go. We'll see how they solve that. In the meantime, though, I mean, Schwartcat was doing things, right? Like, they were definitely active on the Tracer. They
Arguably.
were running around GMs, but it also felt like GMs was, I wouldn't say letting it, but they weren't really looking into, okay, so this is their composition. How can we exploit that? How can we do that? And they started to do it a little bit with the Mei. I did
Mm,
like that pick because it kind of separates the team even more than they even wanted to on the side of Killer T cells. But it only really worked for that one fight, unfortunately. So maybe they can force something like that more, not necessarily with the Mei, but with abusing the more spread out nature of Killer T cells.
mm,
But that's definitely something that should be able to be done on a map like Havana, which is where we're going
absolutely.
next.
Worth noting that for this round, we have actually got a couple of substitutes coming in. And a side swap, Killer T cells playing in the blue this time, and it's going to be Lightbulb in on the off-tank role here, coming in for Killer T cells. And on General Motors, I believe we've got Psycho Reaper out and Power in here. So a little bit of a swap. Let's see if that reverses the fortunes of our two teams as we start coming into Havana.
Yeah, let's see what changes, what goes on. We do with the defense first now for Killer T cells, so they get to get to show how closely to this garage door they can be held. Um, it's been a strategy that we've seen a lot in the past. Hold them in that first spawn, because if you don't, then they get that entire stretch for free, and then it's basically one fight and you've lost the objective. So they're trying to get that second fight out of there. Might as well. I mean, that's what it comes down to. But it does seem like Killer T cells, at least the Ashe and the Mercy, are setting up on the high ground, and they're holding on this first corner, so they're not going all the way into their spawn so far. And I mean, you don't have to. It's just something that we know teams sometimes like to do. And we're gonna get the double sniper counter on the attack, it seems, but at least it's double barrier for both of them.
And I think a lot of this is going to be down to how good Power and Chassin are on these sniper rolls. Because yes, SWATcat has some long-range damage, but it pales in comparison to the range of Chassin and the zero drop-off of Power on the Hanzo. So, Chassin looking for an angle here, but Power gets the first pick. SWATcat's down. I believe they should have the res available. They are now giving up ground. They bring SWATcat back into the fight here. Power takes a bit of a dink and has to get back behind the car. And just whamming in the arrows, Gonza goes down, no res available, and this is already a much better look here for GMs. Power with his head on a swivel spots that we do have players up on the high ground, that it's SWATcat and Nice Me taking a bit of damage, and now they've got to be careful because they are coming on up after them. Jason's made the swap onto the Ashe, took a lot of damage themselves, and SWATcat, cool as a cucumber, takes Power out of the fight. Back up onto the high ground now for Chassin, and SWATcat goes down. Res comes back in, and Power is back in the fight. The payload is making it around this final corner, and the kills are coming in slow and steady here for GM. There is a shield down, and suddenly everyone is a lot more vulnerable to the Orb of Discord and the additional damage that comes in over the top. A quick double here for Chassin, and only a few players left from Killer T-Cells. General Motors looks to have really turned things around here. Classy. Rocket Max down to the fire. TNT burns them down. They're doing a good job of stalling this out, and they're starting to make the punch back here. Gonzo makes himself scarce, hiding behind the payload, pops the biotic field, will allow them to sustain a little bit longer. The rest of the team ready to come back in and reinforce this position, but now they've got to deal with the Bob deep into the back line here. Gonzo's gonna go down. This has been much more of a long drawn-out fight than we really expected to see given last map, Classy.
Yeah, they're doing a great job so far on the side of GM to push the flanks really hard. So they're not letting SWATcat and especially SWATcat get away with playing that Ashe in a more solo position. They really have to be supported by Nice Meme at this stage, and it's continuing well. I mean, they got the first checkpoint, 4.5 minutes on the clock. This is a nice pace for Havana, and a good showing from GM so far. So Killer T-Cells might have to reassess their power level. But a lot of it might also have to do with the tank line. Like just the fact that Gamezoid and Sherlock have a more static and more free way to move around as opposed to what it was going with the Reinhardt Zarya. That's a big difference in how you approach these things as well. They have to be careful about all these ultimates though.
They do, because we've got very nearly a full stack. In fact, Nice Meme only 3% away from giving us that full sixer. Might be a Q-Bonanza coming up for that. 2 on the board already. Got the Bob comboed here with the Supercharger. Sherlock Schmo is able to find Nice Meme there before that particular one can come online. Sunline with the Baptisto. Gonzo coming in, drops into the back, looks for the support, goes for the tactical visor, lands a couple. The supports are down. And this is finally where Killer T-Cells have the chance to stabilize. But Gonzo's not out of the woods yet. Manages to chase them off and will rejoin the team and take the high ground.
I'm going to be seeing if Killer T-Cells can hold on for a little bit longer. They did just expend quite a few ultimates. And if that's the trend, then eventually you're going to keep going into this war where one team will have all their ultimates and the other team will have all their ultimates. And they just win fights in turn. It's good immortality field to stop that pulse bomb. Well, it means the field's out now, so that's the thing they know. Which means that another ultimate, like for instance, a Bob or, I don't know, any of the tank ultimates can really get more value. But Gonzo is just cleaning up.
Gonzo permanently playing right on the very thin edge of their own health bar there, but gets the flank in, locks the into the speeds, playing around this other health bag, but it just didn't come back in time, and Rocket Man lands the volley onto Gonzo, and Gonzo is down. Nice Meme should have the res available, but that is just not a resable position here, Classy.
It really is not. Power switching over to the Hanzo again. Was doing very well on the first point. Probably switched to Tracer to get back to the fight quickly at that first objective, and then just had a pulse bomb. But that Hanzo has been instrumental in breaking that shield down early. That's really what they've been winning on. You see it again, Tofu just being lasered down by arrows.
They did burn the immortality field there to allow the rest to come through, so Tofu's now back in the fight. But they've got to be so careful about Power, because Power can really turn this around with just one stray, seemingly RNG arrow to the head. Tank for tank traded now. Game's on Tofu back out of the fight. And a beautiful angle being taken up by Chassin's Bob here, meaning there's nowhere really for Killer T-Cells to rotate. And as we start to see that Bob have its effect, force the rotations and isolate people, GM start to get the kills, and the payload is moving on forward.
I was a little worried about that Bob because it kind of seemed like he was stuck behind the box. But fortunately, they were able to still get some value out of it. At least it was a deterrent for certain angles. Power's ready at this front line. Wants to probably get that Dragon online, maybe spam it through, but doesn't have it just yet. Ooh, might get the invade. Yep, nearly gets the elimination on SWATcat. Will be rezzed up though.
That's a really good trade. SWATcat was able to actually avoid the gravitic flux and get the Bob onto the point, so is currently contesting the card and also counting kills. Gamezoid down to the Bob here. Lightbulb back on the low ground. Playing around the shield, looking to get that last little damage and to get the kill onto Sherlock Schmo. It's going to be SWATcat that finds this one, and it was very close to taking this through to point C there for GM, but Killer T-Cells find just a little more in the tank.
Yeah, very unfortunate for both Power and Sherlock. Power almost getting out after that first elimination, and then Sherlock gets 2 eliminations out of that Gravitic Flux combo, but unfortunately the Resurrection and the counter ultimates were just too good. Nice Shatter. Oh, does actually not so nice Shatter. Misses everything. And the field's out straight away too.
Oh, and Tofu took a lot of damage. I believe got a little bit. Ooh, comes in swinging, and Power gets their head taken off the shoulder. We have now got Gamezoid contesting the cart, moving it slowly forward, finds the third as Nice Beam goes down. SWAT Cat's got the high ground, but it is now 3-on-4 with the Transcendence still in effect. Sherlock Schmo gets the rundown, and Sunlight is out of the fight. Tofu valiantly holding on to their control of the cart. Nearly had that ultimate online and ready to go. SWAT Cat down, and no contest possible. We get to run through point C.
Did make it to overtime, so only a minute and a half in order to get to that third checkpoint. And we know about Havana, Phil. We know that there's one thing that we all are very certain about. Last point is the hardest one to cap, so you want as much time as possible, and they don't have that. What they will have is a Shatter and a Bob and a Valkyrie, but on the other hand, I do see 6 light bulbs about to be online on the other side for the killer T-cells. And with that, I do, you know, obviously good luck to try and get this third checkpoint, but it's a grim perspective for me.
It's a difficult one to cap, as you said, and Jason just walks into that boulder. Gonzo decided he didn't need the tactical visor, he could do that with just the primary. Bob on the field from Chessin here once more, starting to do some work. Here's the counter Bob coming through from SWAT Cat. Taking up possession of the point, forcing back what is left of General Motors here. Gonzo found the kill onto Chasing, still holding on to the tactical visor. SWAT Cat finds Rocket Max, and we are down into the final 30 seconds here. Desperation swaps coming through. Chasing's going to pick up the Widowmaker here and look to find some picks. And we're going to see Killer T-Cells move back and take up a more defensive position.
I'm starting to think that the GMs, the General Motor Grandmasters, most likely, that's what they wanted to go for. But we'll see if they can actually live up to their name, if not in SR, then in other places. Jason gets a beautiful headshot. That's at least the Resurrection out, but attack visors at a good angle. Luckily, there's Transcendence.
Yeah. Oh, actually still able to burn down Bocat through that. Power's going to fall down too, so what should have been almost a guaranteed win on the team fight here is suddenly turned a little bit on its head for the GMs. SWAT Cat's able to get the better of Chassin, and now SWAT Cat is playing the offest of off angles, manages to get the kill onto Gamezoid, finds it onto Sherlock Schmo as well, and whoever is left on the point trying to hold this for GMs wasn't enough. There's only so much that one Zen can do to keep that alive. Still most of the way through C, so a chance here for General Motors to get a map on the board.
It's all about their own defense, I feel like. I think their attack was good, but that defense needs to be either equally or better, because sometimes a team looks very good on the attack, and then when they finally get to defend, it just falls apart straight away. And first and second are not the ones you're really worried about on Havana, usually, about attacking those. Maybe second to a degree, but first should usually be fine. I'm looking to see whether these flank maneuvers that they're still able to pull off on the side of Killer T-Cells, they're going to try and accomplish that as well on the attack, because that's really where a lot of their power comes from. It's not necessarily for that straight up fight. If it's like a straight linear engagement, you do see that the GMs are doing quite a good job of often winning, actually, of doing those fights. But Gonzo and SWAT Cat get a lot of freedom to walk around the enemy with either their ultimates or just generally with their firepower. And that's putting a lot of pressure on that back line and the DPS on the side of GMs. Like more than they can really deal with. They need to prevent those flanks rather than react to them, because they're not really reacting at this stage.
And it looks like they've not really made any specific adaptations for that, but I like the general adaptation here. They've realized that the utility of the Asher of the Widowmaker is very strong, and that Orisa still isn't really in a fantastic place, and having the Reinhardt to discourage brawling or to punish people caught out of position near the GM team, I think is a really smart move. But they're playing already very passive, holding this first corner, which allows them to trade some damage, but Chassin was just caught napping on that one. The boosted rocket takes them out of the fight. They will have the Mercy available for the rest, but I don't know if she's going to have the space to actually get in and let that happen. Gonzo finds a second Bocat caught out, and it is hammer swinging. Tofu up against Gamezoid. 1-for-1 trade, but that's going to respawn will heavily favor Killer T-Cells, at least for the next little while. Gonzo pressures with rockets. Has to move out of the way of Power. Knows Power is a real threat here, but is buying space to allow the brawly tanks of Killer T-Cells to start to push forward. So this, oh gosh, Power caught out of position on that one, and their main threat to deal with the Pharah is gone. Res back in the fight, but Tofu has closed the distance in the meantime and is swinging into the enemy tank line, who have less brawl potential by not having that Zarya with them. Gonzo closing in on the ultimate here. Looking to land at least one more rocket onto Power. Catches them coming around the corner, sees both the DPS. Pressured out here, lands the direct, and Chasing is down. One more onto Power, and Power is gone. And gone at the hands of Gonzo, no less.
Gonzo just punching that one in, and they're about 30 to 40 seconds faster than we saw on the other side. It's not a huge difference. There's still a lot of work to be done, but this inside area is where they need to stall a lot. They need to find a way to win a fight in the first place, and then to keep that momentum going. The ultimates are starting to come online, but they need to be careful about Gonzo, because Gonzo has been really good at finding these positions with Pharah right now.
Well, a bit of waste to come because it blast right into the waiting Sigma shield, but Gonzo can play just using the pressure of the barrage. They have to know that this is online. They have to be looking for something coming in. Gonna look to see him try and take out Rocket Max, but it was a slow and steady play, and by playing a little quicker here and finding a few picks, General Motors have turned the tide, and this is their turn to hold on this very difficult gantry position in Point B.
Yeah, and being able to do that with using only 2 ultimates is a really important thing, because that means they have some more to hold on for longer, especially when you look at killer T-cells that expend it more and don't have as much in the bank. So this could be another 1 or 2 minute hold at least, maybe more. And that puts GMs in a much better position than we thought they might have been in. I mean, they've definitely been showing up way more than they did in Lijiang.
Power's made a swap now, playing the McCurry, so it's a double hit scan threat to try and deal with Gonzo. Sunline down already. The Bob committed. Nice meme down. No supports for killer T-cells. GG go next. Return to spawn. Do not collect $200.
I mean, can you collect money in this game if you don't go back to spawn?
I was going for Monopoly reference, but I understand it was
I know, but it would be
delivery.
No, I got it. I was just, what if there was a money element as well? You had if you had to buy items or skills or anything like that. I don't know. Hey, look, Overwatch 2, maybe, but for now we're still in Overwatch 1. We're still in the CEA championship between these two teams. Power goes down early. It was a nice flank position, but now you've lost 2.
Yeah, boosted TNT. Gravitiflux comes through, catches 2, but Tofu gets 2 just as quickly as that. Sunline's down, but that's got to be it here. We'll see the Sigma still alive here. Sherlock Schmo on the low ground buys a little bit more time. We've probably got one more team fight here, given that the cart has not really moved past that first entryway. And Gonzo is still holding on to this barrage.
You can't find an angle. That's really what it comes down to. And sometimes Pharah is more effective without the barrage. It's also a thing. That last fight really was just decided by the lack of preparation for the exit strategy from Power and Bocat, I feel like. If just the McCree goes down, maybe you have a shot still, but Bocat going down extremely after, not great.
Oh, that was phenomenal! Lands the rocket, blasts out of the way, Tofu's there to block the shatter, Gonzo finally finds somewhere to stick the barrage and gets the chase on a few more kills at the back of the fight. That's gotta be Point B over and done with, and we move on to the open air outside of the distillery.
Nice one. Power getting on top of it. Ooh, almost contested in time, but not quite.
Power.
Now we'll go down themselves. So, I understand why Gonzo waited with the barrage for so long now, because they just wanted to win a fight, and then as soon as GMs have to come back in, you're the defensive Pharah, and the defensive Pharah always gets more value out of her barrages and just out of her general play, so understandable that Gonzo would go for that one. Now we see Lightbulb, no charge, no ultimate charge, but the Bob will do their job, and they're just tracking those of tanks.
Did see one come through from that shatter. Lightbulb still struggling with charge, but not struggling with accuracy and or lethality there. Finds the kill onto Gamezoid, and Gonzo is still looking for kills. Just gonna pressure some exits, guys. Yeah, we don't need to worry about kills. Just make it hard for them to get in and contest, and that is done. Effective, long-range gatekeeping from Gonzo on the Pharah.
I think we're really talking about a minute difference between these teams, where they almost have it. Like the GMs almost have just an entire the entire list of ingredients to put together to create a wonderful gameplay, a lot of team fights, and like map wins. It's almost there, but it's just that extra ingredient right now that's on the side of the killer T cells that's pushing them over the line. And it's not a lot. It's getting closer by the map, and I just don't know if we have enough maps to really make GMs get a chance in this series.
Yeah, let's have this be first to 7 and just see if over the course of those
Yeah,
minimum 7 maps we can get a slightly more even fight here for GM.
I know, right? He's got a first to 10. I don't remember where I saw that. I saw someone type something about a first to 10 in a server the other day.
Oh lordy.
Like a first to 10, that would be a long time.
That is
Because
that
I
is
think,
like your standard Overwatch streamers day in day out job. Just think about that for a minute.
well, okay, but I think at some point you just exhaust the map pool. If you go to a first to 10, because imagine if you draw like one or two, it's not great. The competitive
I
map pool
think if
isn't
you
that
exhaust the
big.
map pool, you start to get a little creative when we go do something on Eco Point Antarctica or
Maybe, right? Just
Castivo.
go for
Yeah, well,
the mystery here, the mystery 1v1 or something. Is it go decide it that way? I think there's definitely options. Just we're not quite there yet.
mhm.
What we're gonna do though, because we've had two maps fill, and the GMs feel it. They're feeling it. They have the hope. We're gonna take a little bit of a break, make sure that they are also completely set on their entire game plan for the next map because they get to pick the map again, and this time they have to win it, otherwise the series is over.
Indeed, yeah, right at the back end of this one for Killer T Cells and GMs, but we'll decide that after the break. And welcome back, everybody. Here we are with what could be the last map of this series between Killer T-Cells and GMs. And we are on our way to reclaim Reinhardt's Master's Armor in Eichenwalde. So, a map that I think is going to play really nicely into what we just saw Killer T-Cells play with. Classy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Pharah was just it would definitely say it was an important part of their victory. There was more going on, but definitely the Pharah seemed to be something that was very hard, if not impossible, to deal with on the other side of the GMs, at least consistently. They definitely got him a few times, but that's few times is not enough if you want to win a map or a series. So we'll see if that pick actually prevails throughout this map as well, and whether they actually get to go to that armor location in the end, Phil, because last time they didn't actually get to the end of the map.
This is very true. Yeah, we may go not a lot further than this. And not a lot of surprise. Killer T-Cells going to be starting with the Pharah. Nice chance to play around that central pillar. Classic Pharah gameplay. Shadow Motors did eventually wise up to this and start running double hit scan. Let's see if they're going to pull that one straight out of the bag this time.
I wouldn't put it past them. They've had a decent combo on that one, but once again they're looking to a position where even if you have the hit scan, you still need to hit the shots, right? And we do have power now being on the Reinhardt, who was playing the Hanzo in the or the Tracer in the last map. We'll see if that's going to make a difference. The Psycho Reaper and Jason are both in now, so that was their control DPS duo. Meanwhile, on the other side, keep on going strong.
Yeah, this may end up being a better look for them. Looking at the team sheet, Power is listed as being a tank player. So let's see if this swap-up is one for the books or not. It's a slow rotation now from General Motors, but they have made their way whilst almost dodging most of those Pharah rockets. Unfortunately, Psycho Reaper falls down, and in the back of the 5v6, they start to grow. Bocat taken down mid-res, and almost to the point there for General Motors, but not quite.
You keep seeing this constant desire from Gonzo and SWAT-Cat to not be with their team. This constant be like, oh no, while you're distracting them, we can finally make our move. It almost feels like they just say to Tofu, Papao, Sunline, and Nice Beams, like, you guys just stand there, we'll take them out while you distract them. It really seems to be just like a tactic. Gonzo doing it again.
Ooh, wow.
Very aggressive. Woo! That's two.
That's good value. Can they be aggressive enough here for Nice Beam to get in and secure the res? Ooh! Stun connect! Luckily, that Immortality Field was there, kept SWAT-Cat alive through it, and Power gets sent back to spawn. We have missed the res here, but Gonzo should be back in time for this next fight. Easy.
It's looking easy so far, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy forever. This double barrier is going to be hard to break through. You need to find a way to outposition them, really. I mean, you can't just walk into this, because they'll have killed you before you get there. And once again, that's what happens. 4K.
So much damage. The high noon, the boost from the Mercy, the amplification matrix. I so wonder the walls are still standing here.
Well, I mean, it's exactly what's going to keep on happening, right? Because you have a Mercy that keeps damage boosting something, whether it's a DPS or a tank. They do a ton of damage towards that shield from Power. It goes down, and it's free damage the entire time. They're going to switch over to a complete dive style now to try and circumvent the shields. They just jump straight at it.
Power just ceased to exist. Power just got Thanos snapped out of the map. Chasing down two here. Nice staggering here of the damage boosting ultimates as well. Tofu getting a lot of value from that supercharger, but that had to be a miserable experience for Power.
At this point, we're just talking about ease of execution, Phil. We're just talking about a double barrier composition. With a Fire and a McCree, they just have to stand there and spam at a choke point, and the other team not really having an idea of how to attack it as a team. I'm not saying they don't know how to play the game, not at all, but they're definitely at a bit of a loss of how to approach this as an attacking team.
It did seem like Power made a bit of an early dive there. Is now in the back and pressure's Gonzo, but very difficult to out-damage that Mercy Hidden Beavers of Winston. They're more or less at parity. It's 55 to 50. Gonzo's going to take out Bocat and is most of the way to another barrage. This looks to come online. Gonzo waiting for the landing to come in. We'll start to see kills coming through from General Motors finally. SWATCat finds one there with the stun, but it's tanks alive on point. SWATCat pulls the trigger and finds a kill. Gonzo survives through the damage to find the barrage kill onto Sherlock Schmo. And this is a desperation primal here from Power. Slowly getting a little more ult percentage. Gonzo ignores the primal rage, drops down, finds the mercy, and keeps the point alive, ready for the rest of the team to come back in. Some progress on the board here for the GMs and a little bit of point presence, but not enough HP. Tofu runs over Rocket. Chasn's going to find Papau here. Sunline's back. And I think this might be done here. Killer T-Cells and Gonzo in particular just finding the kills to make it happen.
At least they got 60.7%, but it just doesn't look like that's going to be enough. I'm looking right now to Killer T-Cells almost with a sense of really do you have to go that way with like just a double barrier, set it up and spam into a choke point and win that way? But that 4 HP play from Gonzo, that was just ridiculous. Like the fact that Power just couldn't get that little bit of a touch on them with that primal rage. You have so much mobility and range in that. It's a bit of a shame. It's almost one of those where you think like, how did they get away with it? But we just saw how the ease of execution can make a big difference when you're on the defense here. And it looks like they want to go for a similar strategy. And instead of the McCree, they're going with that Bastion.
Okay.
I gotta say, if we're gonna see it today, this would be the moment to pull it out. It's the Hail Mary moment.
And this is kind of like, I'm thinking back to NYXL Season 3 Volskaya defense with the Bastion on the high ground protected by 2 shields. And just the floating orb of chaos that is the Pharah here as well. So, like, this is potentially a very strong composition.
That's not how they're going to play it, though. They're going to play it the way that everyone plays Eichenwald, which is spam at the choke point.
Spam at the choke.
Which, if the Bastion's on the high ground, he cannot do. So, they're going to be at this corner. They're going to just look at that choke and spam it down. And now we're going to see if Killer T-Cells actually knows how to circumvent this, how to play against this with a Reinhardt Zarya composition, because we saw how tricky that can be in the last round.
We're going to be looking for some sort of heroics here from SWATCat, at the very least, to make this work. They've already made this rotation through. No res available for them this time, so that's a permanent kill. We'll see the res available for Bocat, but Bocat gets taken down mid-res, and the double barrier bunker comp is just falling apart, and Tofu is 100% the tip of the spear. That might be play the game there for Tofu, and he made it look effortless.
Yeah, once again talking about a moment where the Killer T-Cells are able to flank, rotate, and do whatever with their positioning, and there's no real response coming out from the other side. Like, just having a Bastion is not enough of a deterrent if you're not able to look at 2 or 3 directions at once, which is kind of what was necessary there. Gonna see this beautiful high noon, how that takes place. You can see that shield just gets burned down because of this. Actually drops it, unfortunately. That's just too much. It's just too much damage that keeps being spammed at that choke point. And yeah, I mean that's Killer T-Cells punching their ticket to another win. 3-0. Not I don't think there's too many sweat drops on their forehead, but they had a bit of a harder time, especially on Havana. And to a degree on Lijiang at times, but they definitely didn't look like the challenged team today.
No, particularly not on Eichenwald. Eichenwald, they just made that look very, very simple. But I think for GMs, there were definitely some moments there they can be very proud of. Particularly their point A Havana offense was very good. Killer T-Cells just caught napping by that double sniper comp. So hopefully we'll see a little more out of General Motors over the course of the group stages, and hopefully they can put a W on the board somewhere in the melange of the group stages. But it does mean that the match itself is now over and done with, putting us at roughly the halfway point of the evening. We're just going to throw it to a quick break while we try and line up somebody to talk to from Killer T-Cells so that we can learn a little bit more about them and their charity. So we'll be back with you in a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We're here for everybody's favourite part of the show. It's the post-match interview. And as Killer T-Cells represent 2 different companies, well, we've got a treat for you. 2 different players, one from each half of the team, joining us today. So Lightbulb joining us from Adaptive, and Samarillis playing from Slalom. And Samarillis, sorry, tell me again, who were you playing as in game?
Yeah, no problem. I was playing Sunlion in the game.
Sunline. So thank you very much, both of you. Congratulations on the win. How are you feeling on the back of that?
Pretty good on this one.
Yeah, last season we faced against an Epic team, and they were very good. So feeling a little bit demoralized from last week, but it was good to kind of get more team practice in for this week.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, these results were showing. Of course, it's always hard to gauge your opponent sometimes in this circumstance. Did you already know a little bit about your opponents of today, or was it really just like, well, we'll see how they are when we get into the game?
Yeah, we didn't really do scouting or anything. They have a pretty big roster too, I think, same as us. So that can vary a lot in terms of who plays anyway. And I guess for us overall, our attitude is a little bit more like we're here to play with each other and not so much to win because we're not exactly, I guess, hardcore.
That's fair.
So yeah, setting expectations early.
So we cast you guys last season, I think maybe even a couple of times. Do you feel that in the time since the last season, you guys have improved as a team or as players individually?
Most definitely, yeah. I think this time it definitely showed. Like we had much tighter coordination on things like movement and ults.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. You're looking significantly improved, in my opinion. But I wanted to get your feeling on that one rather than just judge for you.
Yeah, that's it makes a lot of sense to get that going. Of course, you played a few different compositions. A little bit of a flexibility here and there. Is that something that you really feel like you're excelling at as well? That you're like, oh, we're very flexible to switch to whatever we kind of need, or do you have some preferences? Like, we'd rather be on this or this, or is it really an open book?
Yeah, so go ahead.
Compared to normal weeks, this is actually really quite different for us because a lot of our normal players were in different roles. So we really, a lot of us flex a lot. It's really more about enjoying sort of the entire game instead of just being focused on one.
Yeah, so I think a problem that we have is sometimes, especially at the beginning when we don't know each other, we're like, all right, what do you want to play? And then everyone's just silent because everyone's like maybe too flexible and accommodating too much. So we need more selfish people on our team is the takeaway here. But yeah, we're definitely trying to work on our different team compositions and understanding more of the game strategy.
Great. So it sounds like you guys are on your way to being top 8 contenders. Maybe not this season, maybe a season or two down the line if you can keep this up. And I'm looking forward to seeing you manage that. I think you've still got the same charity that you had the last time we saw you, which is Fred Hutch.
Indeed.
Just tell
Yep.
us a little bit about what Fred Hutch does.
Yeah, so Fred Hutch is one of the largest cancer research centers on the Pacific Northwest. It's a nonprofit that's coordinated with a local university and a local children's hospital that does monumental cancer research. In fact, they were the institution that gave us bone marrow transplants.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we do love them. And for Adaptive, we have a special sort of relationship with them in that Fred Hutch often acts as like incubators for small ideas and small startups. And so Adaptive was one of these that actually kind of came out of the Hutch. We very appreciated.
Well, that's great. Nice to be in a position to try and give something back as well. So that's really great to hear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, I mean, hopefully you can get some fun stuff to them this year for through CEA. Otherwise, maybe in the future. But at least, if anyone's watching, they that hasn't heard about the institution, now they know. That might already bring some change to the world, as we like to say. Yeah, obviously, you're made up teams made up of two companies. That was already the case last season. Has there been any desire to try and expand the pools within an individual company to like split the team, or has it really been fun just to keep this growing?
Yeah, I think for both of our companies, we have a strong amount of Overwatch interest, but not enough to field a team every single week. So I think on the slalom side, we actually had like 7 players. But like if just 2 people can't make it one weekend, then the whole team has to forfeit or try to reschedule. So um, since we had a good run with Adaptive last season, and they were kind of in a similar position as us, we decided to keep it going.
At this point, it's basically
Sounds good.
family. I feel a little sad if we lost it. Yeah.
great.
That's really good to hear. Well, guys, we're going to let you go and enjoy that win with your respective. I assume you're all in the same team environment with your respective companies and your own team. But before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to?
Just all the rest of my Overwatch friends.
Great. Well, Sam and oh, do you know what? What a terrible thing. Sam and Lightbulb. There we go. Sorry, don't know why I blanked that one. Thank you very much for joining us. And for everybody else watching, we're going to throw it to a little break while we get the next set of teams lined up. We'll be back with you in a few minutes.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.